double record, I guess. But I want to welcome everyone to this edition of Marketers Guild's AI Insiders. And I've got a couple exciting guests here. One who I've known a very long time, Brett Martin, who was one of the earlier folks pitching weird mobile, social, local ideas back when I was at 360i. And then Jen, who I don't know as well because we just met, but when Brett wanted to involve her in the conversation, I was very excited for the opportunity to learn from her today. So, Brett, Jen, I'll let you kick this up because we have a conversation today about how AI is being used in the hiring process, and this is something that's like, I mean, just talking about this, how it's like it's relevant to everyone. It's especially relevant to marketers that figure out how to grow teams and how to navigate AI being used in processes like this that you come across. So I'm just fascinated by what Brett's been building and look forward to hearing more.
Well, thank you so much, David, and thanks for everyone for taking the time to, listen in. I think we've got enough people to where we'll try to involve everyone. And if anyone has any questions, throw it in the chat and flag your hand. I'm kind of going to run this bit like a fireside chat. I'll just do some quick introductions. So, as David said, I'm getting older and older in New York tech. I guess it's been 20 years, but I basically I run Charge VC, which is a New York-based pre-seed venture capital fund, third fund, 90 plus portfolio investments. One of which is the amazing Jen Wirt at Coral Care. So Jen's one of my more recent investments in the past year. And I also am the co-founder of Fonzi AI, which is essentially a tech-enabled recruiting agency. So we actually acquired a pretty well-known New York recruiting firm. We haven't announced that yet, but then we've been building a bunch of technology essentially make recruiting much more efficient, and essentially it built an AI recruiter. Actually, we had not had that agency when we worked with Jen, so we were totally doing it all ourselves. And my co-founder and actually CEO of Fonzie, who's Yang Mao, who's this an engineer from Google, was being a recruiter, and as was our head of marketing, Drew Moffett, who is actually the recruiter working with Jen. So, um, you know, today we'll have Jen introduce herself, and then we'll just kind of walk through the the process of how we work together, why we work together, what Jen kind of saw in working with us, or what she was afraid of, and how it worked, and then we'll kind of have a more broader discussion about AI and hiring general. So with that, Jen, you want to let everyone know who you are and what you're up to.
Yeah, I'm Jen. I'm the CEO and founder of Coral Care. We are a platform helping parents to be able to access pediatric developmental therapies, so like speech, occupational, and physical therapy. To a parent, we operate like a local marketplace, so we make it really easy to find somebody who will come to your home and work with your child on a weekly basis. Well, how we show up on our clinician side is more like a business in a box model. We make it really easy for them to build or springboard their own private practice. With our approach, we've grown the supply. This was a very supply constrained space that is extremely fragmented, and so we've been able to bring a lot more people into private practice and be able to serve the families. We contract directly with health insurance companies, and so we make it more affordable and accessible for everyone. And we've been around for about almost 2 years.
Awesome. And, I think just Jen has a kind of amazing background. She's, started as an engineer, was a, product manager, worked at a bunch of companies. You heard of some, Samsung, uh, Handy, Weight Watchers, became VP of product, and then, has worked now, runs her own company. So she's kind of like the full stack founder, which is one of the reasons I was quite excited to work with her. But in this particular project, maybe Jen, give the sort of context. Where was your organization at, and who you're trying to hire, and kind of why.
Yeah, so I actually started this from my own lived experience. When my daughter was born, she had some developmental delays, and we just went through the harrowing process of trying to find anyone to work with her. It's pretty brutal for anyone who's gone through it. And so I was just motivated for a really long time to fix this, and had been working in digital health and became more aware of like how business in a box model had benefited mental health sector, and kind of saw all the pieces and started to stitch them together in my mind. And that's what led to building Coral Care. Um, what was the second part of the question, Brett?
Like, where were you, and when we started working together on
Oh,
hiring? Like, what was what caused the need, and what did you think you were looking for, and what brought you to us?
yeah. So, I mean, I knew Brett because he invested in our seed round. But when I came to them, Brett's great because I can go to him with challenges and he helps me problem solve them. And so one of the challenges that we had is how to build credibility on both sides of the marketplace. And so we have been kind of just looking at different paths forward and falling into the trap of like, well, we're local, so do we want to be relevant to everybody or to these people? And like, what's the right strategy around it? And had been looking at um, influencers as a path to grow and as a path to kind of like take their credibility and port it over to give us credibility. And so we were looking for a program to be able to build that out. Um, I'm like a test and learn person. Obviously, not everything works, and I like to kind of shoot a lot of arrows and see which one hits the target and run with it. And so when I came to Brett, we had brainstormed how to put together a playbook around this, and we really just needed a person to run with that playbook and be really like adaptable. If, a playbook is great, but obviously like things happen and it doesn't always work as anticipated. And so we needed somebody who could be smart enough to identify what wasn't working and what was working and perform that way. And so um, we had a really tight budget. We're trying to just put most of our money in one side of the business, and we were very like budget constrained. And so I kind of came to Brett with like, I need this perfect person, but I think they need to be offshore and I don't even know how to find them. And so that was where we started.
And just to sort of reiterate, the goal was to use influencer marketing to acquire whom?
Both. We knew we wanted to do both. We know we wanted to both parents and our clinicians. We thought it would be cheaper to start on the clinician side, just because it's more of like micro influencers who haven't done a lot of this before. And so um, we could have more opportunities to fail by spending, less with each influencer, whereas with the parenting ones, they're just so expensive. And so we wanted to start on the provider side of our business and um, use it to position us as a platform to springboard your private practice in these specialties.
Cool. And so I highlighted that because one of the things that we've been, you know, really leaning into for the past several years is we've been using influencer marketing for both B2C and B2B customer acquisition. And I think in particular, like influencer marketing for B2B is like even in 2015 still feels like this underutilized channel. People don't really believe that the same people on TikTok, the people on LinkedIn are actually also on TikTok, which they are. And so we've been pushing this. But one of the reasons that Fonzie was created is that we had done a bunch of research with a bunch of people hiring, and a couple problems kept coming up over and over, which was that for any role where there was a lot of applicants, and that pretty much applies to any GTM, marketing sales role. Um, Companies are being kind of inundated with inbound. Basically, you put up a job application. If you ask hiring managers, I'm sure some of the folks in here who are hiring, they've experienced this. If you put up a job post, you actually get hundreds of applicants, if not 1,000 applicants in 24 hours. And so what a lot of people are doing is they're putting up a job post, getting 1,000 applicants, turning it off in 24 hours, and then not even sifting through those applicants because there's just too many. And so basically the inbound channel is kind of is like overwhelmed and rendered useless. And that was one of the core problems that we saw when we started Fonzie. And so we said, okay, well, how can we use AI to solve this? And so, the first products we deployed when we worked with Jen was an AI, we built an AI interviewer. So it's basically a live interview conversation with an AI using kind of OpenAI's Whisper, where it will ask you a set of questions just like you would in any recruiter phone screen. And so I guess Jen worked with Drew Moffat, like I said, our head of marketing at Fonzie. When you started, kind of like, what was how did you and Drew kind of how did the process work?
Yeah, so we talked about the role and the budget and just some like qualities that would make somebody the right fit, like things that we would have looked for in early screening that um, maybe are more subjective, I would say, that can be like really hard to screen for. It's not just a yes or no question. Um, and then he had, a lot of experience in hiring or in doing this before, like the influencer marketing before. So he added a lot of thought around like what would make somebody like negotiation skills, like things like that that would make somebody a better fit for this role. And so we kind of put together the perfect profile. And then he was like, okay, I'm going to go and get a bunch of candidates. And that was all I had to do. It was like very easy.
So that's kind of a classic recruiter intake call, right? Where you try
Yeah.
to like get the clients needs. Now on the back end, what we did was then we basically took Jen's kind of must-haves, nice to haves, and then converted them into essentially a set of questions that the AI loosely had to follow, right? And then we posted that on we created that, and then actually critically we also created an evaluation, which is essentially like a rubric for scoring what the both the candidates resumes and what the candidates responses are to the AI. That's probably the secret sauce, is like what teaching a machine what good looks like. And one of the things I'll highlight here, which is kind of like, I think one of the most interesting parts of this problem, is that people don't really know what good looks like. That's part of the problem. People tend to be kind of historically terrible interviewers, right? They're not structured. You get five different interviews with five different people that they don't take notes. Some of them are hungry and they have a judge. They before lunch they're going to score everyone terribly. And so, one nice part about the machine is that it's consistent. It asks the same questions. Or it doesn't do it in the same exact voice, but it does cover every question every time. And it, presumably scores them all the same. I guess, Jen, what were some of your maybe concerns going into it though? Like, did you have any thoughts about like, oh, what is this, like, what could go wrong with an AI?
I feel like I went into it really blind. I should also mention it was like Christmas week that we were doing this. And so I had this call with Drew and I was like, all right, he's going to get back to me after the new year. And then I think it was like December 26th, he sent over the spreadsheet of the candidates who had submitted the rubric. And it was, oh my God, this was so quick. So I kind of went in trusting and blind, I would say.
You're too kind. Jen's too kind. I think sometimes people are worried about you know, recruit like candidate experience is like something that we see a lot, is like, oh, like, are people going to want to talk to an AI? In fact, that was actually one of our core, like literally like hypotheses questions when we started the business, is like, is this going to work at all? Is anyone going to talk to AI? It turns out that a job is a pretty strong incentive. And it turns out that one of the nice things is that, the recruiter is always on time. It's always pleasant. It isn't curt with people. It has infinite patience. So, to Jen's point, we did this the over the Christmas break. And we actually went from, no JD to full-time hire in less than 21 days over Christmas and New Year's. And, one of the nice things is people on the holiday are a lot of them are actually looking for jobs, right? If you don't have a job, you're probably pretty motivated and you have a lot of free time over the holidays, so you are looking. There's this historic, one of the biggest problems in recruiting is like scheduling. Actually, is scheduling with the hiring manager, scheduling with the recruiter, finding a time. And so a nice part about AI recruiters that they're always available. They can do it whenever the candidate wants. So that's actually like much more convenient for the candidate. And so one of the reasons that Drew was able to deliver, a bunch of qualified candidates over the holidays is that the AI actually did 400 phone screens over those 2 weeks, 2,600 minutes of phone screening. Let me see. Yeah, that's a lot of hours. With candidates. And so when Drew basically put that list of candidates, I mean, essentially what we do is the AI screens everyone, scores everyone, force ranks everyone, but then we actually, of course, go back and look at the candidates and listen to the interviews, to the best interviews, and make sure that it's generally right. And so, when Drew kind of presented them, Drew actually ended up presenting. I actually got the spreadsheet in front of me right now. The candidates he presented were all had gotten perfect scores. So it was a 20 out of 20. And how many folks did you meet with, Jen?
I think I took 4 interviews, but I listened to all 20. I mean, it was just so convenient because, well, I just like took a walk, which I feel like I hadn't done in a really long time, and listened to all of the interviews. They were all audio only. And I think probably my first realization is like in my career, I have hired so many people. I am so bad at interviewing compared to an AI. Like the AI was such a strong interviewer. Um, and so I feel like I learned how to be a better interviewer just from listening to these. But um, every single one of them was great. Like I didn't have that feeling like something had missed the mark. Like they were all really strong. Um, and it was also clear like who was the right fit based on that, which I think it's not always clear from that. And so I was able to get it down to 4. And then did the calls with the 4, and from there, um, everyone like presented themselves live in the same way that they had through the AI. So it wasn't like you had this experience of like how they spoke with an AI was radically different than how they showed up as a candidate for you live, which I thought was pretty cool. And it also helped me that my interview with them jumped right into the follow-up questions. Like I acted almost like it was an extension of my own interview, and I was able to like take what I had learned and build on that to drill down into what I really needed to, in a way that I wouldn't have if like I had had it where normally in my hiring, the hiring manager on my team will do the screening and then it's passed off to me and I have like a couple notes, but I almost have to like restart. And so you don't really get to that next level of like, well, how would they react in a certain situation? And you don't get to drill down. And so I really thought that was a great experience as well.
So we got a question from Paul. Paul's got his hand up. Shoot, Paul.
Thanks. Thank you, Brett and Jen, for taking the time. Appreciate it. Curious, are these video interviews? And then my second follow-up question is, what kind of technology did you build this on?
Yeah, so it's pure audio, and we will probably add video interviews, but actually the audio is nice because you can do it over the phone as well. And so then if you add any sort of visual, feedback mechanism, buttons to click, then it's a different experience on the phone than it is on the computer, which is not ideal. So we keep it so that it could just be done over the phone. And then what technology is it built on? We use a bunch of different models, OpenAI, all the ones you'd expect, OpenAI, Claude, Gemini. And then the 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 secret sauce is actually the process by which the interview is done and then the evaluation. So the idea that I didn't complete, which is, it's pretty easy to give a computer a math test and say, okay, how many? Oh, wait, I saw a hand up. I will get you, if you want. It's pretty easy to give a computer a math test and say, okay, did it get how many questions did it get right? How many questions did it wrong? Okay, it got a 9 out of 10. Um, the problem is that if you say, okay, well, computer, which of these 10 candidates, rank order these 10 candidates in terms of best to worst. Well, it'll give you a rank order of 1 to 10, but what true north are you actually comparing that against, right? Because if you give those same 10 candidates to 10 people, they might not actually rank order them the same way, right? So the way we've actually trained the machine is, we look up all the best hiring practices. We try to incorporate that into our assessment. Then we have actually scored the candidates ourselves as humans. So we're constantly we have a kind of sets of canonical interviews, and then we have ranked them 1 to 100, and then we basically run our evaluations against that and try to make sure that the computer is scoring things relatively similar to us and our clients, which is like a very tricky kind of problem. AL, so, see another
Hi.
hand up there.
Yeah, hi there. I didn't know you were going to be on the call, but I just so happened to have applied for a job at Fonzie, and got one of the emails in which I didn't respond to. So I'm curious, what are the applicant benefits to the platform? Because just from a personal marketer's perspective, I was like, oh, this is just a chore. They haven't really selected me yet. It's what's the value to me? Why should I do this?
Yeah, shoot, which job did you apply for? You can text
Yeah,
me.
to
You can text me
bypass it.
afterward.
I
Uh,
did a marketing role.
Doctor. Yeah, okay, got it. So the main benefits we hope are going to start with just the fact that every person will get responded to and every person will have a loop closed. So they sent close the loop and send responses to every single person that has applied for a job at Fonzie, which unfortunately, if you ask any other person that's worked as a recruiter, or applied to a job at a company, it tends to be a black hole. The next thing we're working on, which you can preview if you want, actually, is here. Give me 1 second. Let me just drop it into the. So we are building. We haven't done it yet, but I just dropped it into the chat. We've built the mock interviewer. You can use that today. So if anyone wants to try Fonzie or just experience it, you can go to the link I just dropped in the chat. You can upload a job. You can upload your resume, and it'll give you a mock interview, and to practice interviewing for a job. And then we're actually building feedback into that. So the idea is that Fonzie will hopefully give everyone personalized feedback based on their interview, their resume. Um, and then the hope eventually is to get it to the point where it's not actually the same resume or not the same interview for everyone. Actually, we pre-screen candidates. And then basically, if we see what we identify as gaps in their resume that would make them, not qualified or unlikely to qualify for a job, we'll actually ask them, hey, you know, looks like you're missing these sort of pieces. If you feel differently, or if there's something that's not on your resume that you want to highlight, here are the questions that we want to ask. So the goal is to eventually provide a much more personal, responsive, and experience where people are actually getting pre-vetted and told where they might have not shortcomings, but they might have gaps in advance. I mean, that's in addition to what I started the conversation with is, hey, you can take this interview whenever you want. You don't have to schedule, and you get feedback much faster. But the idea is, at the end of the day, like the long-term vision is Fonzie actually acts as everyone's personal recruiter. So in the sense that I don't know if folks on this call have ever had like a recruiter that they've worked with over the years that they have. There's a lot of recruiters; they're not all great vibes, but maybe you occasionally you meet a good one that you vibe with that keeps you in mind. And when they have a new role, they reach out to you. Like eventually, we want Fonzie to be that for everyone, constantly looking out for new opportunities and roles that could work out well for you, and then ping you. Maybe they also ping you with kind of Fonzie also gives you kind of market intelligence of like, hey, just place someone with your type of background in another role. They're making X. Is this something you would be interested in? That type of information. But
Another
AI, I would
benefit.
also. Oh, sorry. Go for it, Jen.
I think another benefit is that a lot of times when you hire, you go to your own network. And like we've had roles we've posted and we've gotten the exact experience that Brett had mentioned of like 1,000 applicants within 24 hours and we close it. And then we end up only talking to the people that came in through a personal reference. With this, because it was able to go through like so many people in such like a smart way, it surfaces people who might not otherwise be given that opportunity. And then I think with the audio interview, you get one step further without a lot of the inherent bias.
Jen brings up a good point. Yeah, I talked about kind of the human interview process is disorganized and capricious and biased and insidery, etc. Another good example is we just filled a software engineering role, and my co-founder was actually the recruiter running on that, and he identified through listening to the interviews and through the score, he found a candidate that he really liked that they had actually already passed on. So that candidate had applied directly. They had passed, just didn't even look at him. He took our interview. We submitted him again. They said we passed on him. We said, yeah, we know. Listen to his responses to some of these questions, and they're good. And so they said, okay, well, we'll talk to him, right? And so, that is the hope is that it is a much more kind of like obviously like places you've worked at and schools are proxies for quality, but the hope is that this does enable people from more like less traditional backgrounds to really showcase their skills in a new way. I'm going to pass off some of the talking. Julian asked, what feedback did you get from candidates? I'm just going to pass this over to AL. AL, what was your experience with the interview?
I mean, I didn't take the interview yet. You're asking me, right?
Okay. Okay, got it. I thought you had taken it.
No, I haven't taken it yet. It was
So all good.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, what's funny is that people text me or people respond. We have humans at Fonzie, and people say, hey, is there anyone here? Is this you just training AI? And I think it's kind of funny because I monitor customer support. We have customer support team, but every customer support email ends up in my inbox, and so I respond to them often. Hey, yeah, this is humans, and it's good. And if you take the interview, like someone like a human will look at it, which is true. Um, so just so you know.
Real quick, what's the drop off rate between the people you send the email to and the people who actually complete it?
It depends on the role. So for marketing roles, it's like I think 35 to 40% of people that apply take the phone screen. For software engineering roles, it's maybe 15 to 20%. What we do often is like if there's a really good candidate that applies, it looks like a really good candidate. And then if they don't take the interview, sometimes and we need to fill the role, we'll reach out and tell people, hey, you should actually do this. Um, the thing that everyone should know though is that that's not just a function of Fonzie. I mean, that's mostly a function of the fact that people AI apply now to hundreds of jobs at once. So, you know, people are just spraying resumes everywhere, and so there's not a strong an application is not necessarily a strong indication of intent these days anymore. um so I got another question. Oh yeah, I was actually this is from Lisa. From my perspective, as with the hiring candidate, a good interview is a chemistry test. Is there a potential thought partnership? Can you problem solve together? Does AI assess that? I actually this is good because I think Jen started to touch on this in terms of like how she followed up to the interviews. But that was also going to be my question for Jen is like, what could we have done better? What like do you have any thoughts on like, having listened to a bunch of interviews, are there like more questions? Is there a way that Fonzie could do a follow-up interview and maybe capture some of this? Yeah, I'll turn that question to Jen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, Lisa, to answer your question, I looked to like my call with them to see like how we developed chemistry and if like that could be more of a working partnership. And because I was asking the second round questions on the first instance with them, I was able to like kind of challenge and push back in a way that you don't like a lot of times as a startup, especially like I spend the whole call explaining who we are and what we're looking for, and I don't even get to ask those questions. And so I was able to see like how they reacted to me challenging it in a way that like I think I actually could like see if there was chemistry a little bit more than I normally would in a first call. Um, I also started off to like break the ice at the start of each call. I asked them what their experience was like interviewing with AI. It was just kind of like a natural first question. And everyone had the exact same feedback. It was weird at first, and then you just continue answering questions and it felt normal. I mean, it's very, if you listen to them, it's very conversational to the point where somebody would say their answer and the AI acknowledges the answer in a really natural way and reacts to it. Like, oh, that's really interesting that you did that. It's very like, I don't know, smooth, I guess the best way to put it.
Yeah, I should point out that every interview is personalized. It's not just like a list of generic questions that the AI reads off. It is a conversation, and it is personalized based on the person's resume and experience.
Yeah.
Um,
In terms of
cool.
what you
Well,
could like do, what else you could do, I think some feedback there would be like, based on this interview, here are some things that you might want to drill into a little bit more when you do chat with them, would be like, because you have all that data, it would be
mm,
easy to really extract that.
Well, Jen, thanks for that answer. I mean, I guess the proof is in the pudding. You've presumably been hired, you've hired somebody
Mhm.
and are working with them, and how's it going?
It's going well. So I hired someone in Portugal. She manages our influencer outreach. We just signed our first few influencer contracts recently. So we'll have those moving. So we'll see like how what the outcome of that effort is itself. But she's been great. She fits in well with the team. Yeah, it's been honestly like better of a transition than hiring the other ways that we've hired for most people on the team.
yeah, I should mention that remote roles are particularly problematic to hire for because they get way more applications and they also get way more fake and fraudulent applications. So, this sounds absurd if you haven't experienced it yourself, but if you're trying to hire for a software engineering role remote, for example, you will get legit hundreds of fake people applying from North Korea who are, pretending to be people. They have fake LinkedIn's, they, have fake resumes, they sound, it looks real. And honestly, you will waste hours filtering through a bunch of fake applicants to try to figure out real ones. And they're not easy to pick. Like honestly, we have real people who've been doing recruiting for 10 years on our team, and we in their Slack channel, it is constantly saying, "Hey, does this look legit? Is this person real?" And so just imagine the sheer man hours that are wasted sifting through, fake applicants. So we've actually built fake detection into our into Fonzi, which will flag people. We're not disqualifying people immediately. They're just flagged for, hey, they need a second look, and it's looking at things like some of the discrepancies are really nuanced. It's like people will say, people will keyword stuff their resume and they'll say, "Oh, I worked at Amazon and I used TypeScript in 2017, 2019." And it's like, well, actually TypeScript didn't really exist then, or actually Amazon is a Java shop or something like that. So they're like very nuanced things. And that's one of the other benefits I would say is that particularly for software engineering roles, but it applies to marketing as well. Like Fonzie is the most technical recruiter in the world. Fonzie knows how to code better than any technical recruiter does. And the truth is that Fonzie probably knows a lot about marketing, as well. There's a lot of data out there. And so it can actually ask more sophisticated questions than your typical, generalist recruiter. Um, cool. Well, I guess, uh, to sort of break into the discussion in the end, any other general questions around, Fonzie or AI recruiting? And then I wanted to, you know, Jen had a couple like just marketing things she's working on. So I felt like it would be good to poll the audience and see if we had any experts in here. So anything else for Fonzie? Otherwise, and if anyone wants to reach out or if anyone's hiring, I guess my one thing is Fonzie is focused on hiring go-to-market roles. So we're doing that for now. I think we have a bunch of over a dozen clients, currently working with us. And so if anyone is hiring, would love to connect. And otherwise, Jen had a question about local marketing, which we might as well throw out and tap this group of smart people.
Yeah, bring it on.
Eileen, you had a question, right?
Yeah, I had a question. So I went in and checked out and the candidate side of things. If the candidate starts practicing on Fonzie and you're saying, are you really going to find jobs for the candidate?
If someone uses Fonzie as a mock interviewer,
Yes.
yeah. So today we just say, hey, here's a mock interviewer. If you use it, use it to prepare for whatever interview you're looking for. As we build up a list of clients, like right on the other side, we're actually just doing contingency recruiting for a bunch of folks. So we're building up a bunch of demand, what I would call demand side people that are hiring. Eventually, if someone does a mock interview on Fonzie and we think that they could be qualified for a role that we are hiring, then yeah, we'll definitely ping them. But right now, it's interview practice.
Right.
Cool.
Great. I have marketing questions.
Oh.
Fonzie questions.
Yeah, go for it, Jen. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. So I don't know, every week something different is hard, but building a hyper local marketplace is really hard. The way we're very nice in the sense and very accommodating in the sense that the way it works is our clinicians put in how many hours or exactly what hours they want to work. It could be like Tuesdays and Thursdays from 3 to 6 after their other job and the radius that they're willing to drive. And so we have to balance that very specific availability with demand all the time. And so we are always open to new ideas about how to market in a hyper-local environment more efficiently. I think we're trying a lot of things. And so you don't have to answer now, but if anyone as a follow-up has experience with that, I would always love support there.
Have you identified the local markets?
Yeah, so we're live in Massachusetts. We have like over 100 clinicians working across the state. And I think our challenge there is that we do our job really well and people's caseloads get full very quickly in certain areas. And so there it's probably more of a supply issue and just having redundancy in key areas. We're live now in Austin and in Dallas. It's very different level of education around childhood developmental needs. And so people are at a different stage. And so we are in the early stages of growing there. And so we're trying to replicate what has worked in Massachusetts, but it's definitely nuanced.
Sure. I'll reach out to you. I have a contact who might be very helpful.
Okay.
On the customer side, on the parenting side. I don't know about the clinician side, but I'm done many years of marketing to parents, so I can refer you to somebody who can help.
Thank you.
All right. David, see, the network is adding value. Thank you very much for organizing.
Absolutely. And but by the way, Jen, I have a family member who's a physician out in Dallas and might have some thoughts as well as a physician / entrepreneur. So probably be fascinated by what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, David, I think we're gonna get back to work unless anyone else has any other questions.
Anything else for Brett or Jen? Okay, well, thank you so much for joining. I mean, definitely eye-opening on a lot of levels, and for both the communities open anytime, and just feel free to anything you need from this crew, let me know or stop by yourself. Yeah, Brett, I'm fascinated by Fonzie and look forward to just finding more ways to connect with the marketers looking to build their teams with it. So Jen, it's great to hear your experience with it.
Jen,
Yeah,
can you put your email address in the chat?
Oh, sure.
we're going down to Austin for South by. David, you
Nice.
going?
Yeah, I'll be there.
All right, let's hang.
Awesome.
All right, see you all. Have a great day.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey,